Okay, we're going to go over our first exam here, concepts 1, 2, and 3. Concept 1 was mean, median, mode, and range. In the first question, we're given 1, 2, 3, 4 values and an unknown value that have a mean of 130, and we're asked to find that unknown value so that we get a mean of 130. Well, we know that the mean will always equal the sum of all the data divided by how many data points there are. Well, let's go ahead and add these up. The mean is 130. That equals the sum of all the data, so that's the 104 plus the 137 plus the 154 plus the 131 plus the x, the unknown value, all divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with 5 data points. And now we just need to solve this equation for x, and we'll know that value that we're looking for number 1. So let's go ahead and multiply both sides by 5. 130 times 5 is 650. 650 equals, let's see if we add the 104, the 137, the 154, and the 131. That turns out to be 526. And I still have the plus x. If I want to get the x by itself, I have to subtract that 526 from both sides. So x would be 124. So the missing value here is 124. I could check that by finding the mean of 104, 137, 154, 131, and 124, and just making sure that comes out to be the 130. Are there any questions here? Okay, number 2 is looking for a mean and a range. The mean, again, is just that mathematical average. We'll add them up and divide by how many. So when I added 18, 23, 10, 39, 22, 17, 16, and 15, I got 160. If I divide by the number of numbers here, I'm dividing by 8. So 160 divided by 8 is 20. So that means my mean is 20. I also have to find the range. The range is just the largest number minus the smallest number. It just tells me how spread out my data is. Looks like the largest number is 39 and my smallest number is 10. So my range will be 39 minus 10 or 29. So that would be my final answer. I have a mean of 20 and a range of 29. Are there any questions on number 2? Okay, let's take a look at number 3 here. Number 3, your math teacher allows you to choose the most favorable measure of tendency of your test scores to determine your grade for the term. On 6 tests, you earned 89, 81, 85, 82, 89, and 89. What's your grade to the nearest whole number, and which measure of central tendency should you choose? Well, we need to understand what central tendency is here. Central tendency are the measures we're studying. We're studying mean, median, and mode. So basically, we get to choose how our grade is going to be calculated. Do we want to use the mean, the median, or the mode to get the best grade possible? Remember, mean's just that mathematical average. We'll add them up and see, get its total and divide by how many. I did that. When I added them up and divided by 6, I got 85.83. So the mean came out to be 85.83. The median is the middle number in the list. So I need to put this list in order. So let's see, I have an 81, I have an 82, I have an 85, and I have 3 89s. So if I look for the middle number out of 6 numbers, the middle is actually between 85 and 89. So I need to find the average of 85 and 89, just add 85 and 89 together and divide by 2, and what I got was 87. So right now the median's a better way to go than the mean. And the last choice I have for choosing how my grade is going to be calculated is the mode. Remember, mode is the one that happens the most, and it looks like 89 happens 3 times. Nothing else happens 3 times. So 89 definitely happens the most. So the mode is 89. Well, if I want to get the highest grade possible, and I do, I would want my teacher to give me a grade of 89% using the mode. So that's how I would answer question number 3. Any questions? Concept 2 here, we're going to solve some equations. Number 4, we've got 3/7 x plus 5 equals 8. Let's go ahead and try to isolate this x. We want to get it by itself. That's what it means to solve for x. So if I'm trying to isolate the x, the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 5 from both sides. And that will give me 3/7 x equals 8 minus 5 is 3. Now I'm going to deal with this fraction in 2 steps instead of 1, just to make it a little easier. I'm dividing by 7. I don't really want to be dividing by 7, so I'm going to do the opposite on both sides. I'm going to multiply by 7. That'll do a couple things for me. That'll take care of the fractions, and it gets rid of the 7 on, actually I don't want to cross off that one on the right. That was a mistake. I want that 7 to stay there. It's the one down below on the left that gets crossed out. So these 7's reduce out, and I have 3 times 7 on the right. So 3x is left on the left. I have 3 times 7 is 21 on the right. And now I just divide by 3, and we see that x is 7. If I want, I can plug this back in and check it. 3/7 times 7 plus 5, does that really equal 8? Well, notice these 7's reduce out. I get 3 plus 5 equals 8. That's a true statement. So this answer is right. There's no way it can be wrong. Any questions here? All right, let's take a look at number 5. Number 5, I've got this one messed a lot of people up, and I think it's because of the negative d. The negative messed a lot of people up. So let's try this. Let's see. If I'm trying to get d by itself, first thing I'm going to do is subtract this 15. So if I subtract 15 from both sides, what I end up with is 11 minus 15 is negative 4. That equals negative d. But I don't want to solve for negative d. I want to solve for positive d. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to multiply both sides by negative 1 to get rid of that negative on the d. Well, negative d times negative 1 is positive d, and negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. I should show that as multiplication here. Is positive 4. So d is equal to 4. Let's check that. Let's just do that in our head. Negative 4 plus 15, is that 11? Yeah, it is. So that's the right answer. It can't be wrong. Let's go ahead and do number 6 while we're here. Number 6 has 3 times the quantity y plus 6 equals 30. Most people would try distributing the 3 first, and that's okay. But I think it would be easier to divide both sides by 3 right now and make all the numbers smaller. This 3 goes into here real nice, and 3 goes into 30 real nice, so that by the time I get done dividing, all I have left is y plus 6 equals 10. And a lot of us can just see the answer right now, but if I subtract 6 from both sides, the answer will appear algebraically. Let's check that. If I put a 4 in here, 4 plus 6 is 10, times 3 is 30. That does equal the 30 that was supposed to be over there. So that answer is right. It also can't be wrong. Are there any questions on number 5 or 6? All right, let's take a look at this. One thing that makes this problem a little trickier is that there's an x on both sides. So since that's the thing that's making it trickier, let's just deal with that right now, right away. Let's force them all to one side. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. It's just basically going to zero out the x's on the right. 5x minus 3x is 2x. I have a minus 5 equals 3x minus 3x zeroes out, but I still have the minus 9. Now I'm trying to get this x by itself. Now that I've got them all on one side, I want to get that one by itself. So let's go ahead and add 5 to both sides, undo that minus 5. The result there is 2x equals negative 4. And now let's go ahead and divide by 2 to isolate the x. So x equals negative 2. Let's check that. If I put a negative 2 in here, 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Minus 5 would be negative 15. If I put a negative 2 in on the right side, 3 times negative 2 would be negative 6. Minus 9 would also be negative 15. So this answer has to be right. It can't be wrong. Any questions on number 7? Okay, we've only got a couple more problems left on this exam to go over. Let's see, number 8, the sum of 2 consecutive integers is 59. Write an equation that models this situation and find the values of the 2 integers. So we've got to do a couple things. We're supposed to write an equation and find those values. Let's see, consecutive integers are like 23 and 24. Just 2 numbers that come right after each other, and integers are just whole numbers. Actually negative or positive whole numbers, but we'll probably be dealing with positives for this problem. We just need to find 2 numbers that add up to 59 and are consecutive integers. But the harder part here might be writing the equation. I'm going to let n be the first number that I don't know for my equation. And then if it's a consecutive integer, let's not call it a number, let's call it an integer, because that's what the problem's calling it, integer. How far are integers apart? Well, you can see if I have 23 and I want to get to 24, I would just add 1. So if I'm at n and I want to get to the next integer, I would just add 1. So this would be n plus 1. So according to this, if I sum them, if I add them up, they're going to equal 59. So my equation is n plus 1. The first number plus the second number has to equal 59. So there's part of my answer already right there. I've got the equation. Now I have to do the other part. I have to find the two numbers. Well, let's just solve this. N plus n is 2n plus 1 is 59. If I subtract the 1 from both sides, I get 2n equals 58. If I divide by 2, what do I get? I get n equals 29. So the first number is 29, and the second number is one bigger. It's 30. So I have 29 and 30 for my two numbers. So I've done both things. I've written an equation, and I've found the two integers. And they actually do add up to 59, which is good. Any questions on number 8? Okay, number 9. This is definitely the toughest question on the exam. It said at 9 in the morning on Saturday, two bicyclists heading in opposite directions pass each other on a path. The bicycle heading north is riding at 6 kilometers an hour faster than the bicycle heading south. At 10:15, they're 42.5 kilometers apart. We have to find the two rates of the bicycles. So if I was to draw a little picture of this, basically they're riding down a path. They meet each other at this point. One keeps going to the north and one keeps going to the south. The one going to the north is going a little faster than the one going south, and at exactly 10:15, they're 42.5 kilometers apart. So usually the way I do these is I draw a little box to help me hold the information and then create an equation from that box. So let's just draw a little box here. This is a rate times time equals distance problem. Take speed and multiply by time, you're always going to get distance. I'm dealing with two bicyclists. I'm dealing with one headed to the north and one headed to the south. It says that the one heading north is going 6 kilometers an hour faster than one going south. I don't know anything about how fast the guy going south. I don't know how fast he's going, so I'm just going to let that be x. He's going at x kilometers an hour. Then the other guy's going 6 faster, so he's x plus 6. They met at 9, and then they're 42.5 kilometers apart at 10:15, which was 1 hour and 15 minutes, or 1.25, or if I want to work with fractions, 5/4 of an hour. 1 1/4 hours, 5/4 of an hour. Rate times time equals distance, so x times 5.4 is the distance that the southbound, 5/4 times x is the distance the southbound bicyclist goes, and 5/4 times x plus 6 is the distance that the northbound cyclist goes. But it turns out that they cover together a total of 42.5 kilometers. So I have an equation sitting right here now in this little chart that I've made. I know that if I take the distance of the northbound bicyclist and add it to the distance of the southbound bicyclist, it has to equal the total distance between them. So if I solve this equation for x, I'm going to be able to answer that question here. So let's go ahead and solve. I don't really like the fractions running around in there, and so if that's what's making it more difficult for me, let's just go ahead and deal with that right away. Let's just multiply both sides by 4 to reduce all those fractions out. Notice how when I multiply by 4, 4 times 5/4 reduces out this 4, and 4 times that 5/4 reduces out that 4. So this 4, when it gets distributed, reduces out all the fractions. So that'll just leave me 5 times x plus 6 plus 5x is equal to 170, 42.5 times 4. Let's distribute this 5 times x and 5 times 6. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 6 is 30. There's another 5x still sitting here. Let's combine like terms. 5x and 5x is just 10x plus 30 equals 170. Let's subtract 30 from both sides. So now 10x equals 140. When we divide by 10, this is a pretty easy division. 140 divided by 10, so x is 14. So the slow guy, he's going 14 kilometers an hour, and the other guy's going 6 faster, so he's going 20 kilometers an hour. So I want to say that in my answer. The north bound is going at a rate of 20 kilometers an hour, and the southbound is going at a rate of 14 kilometers an hour. Those are my two answers. Any questions here?